replay. And I'm Kendra Cunov. I'm here with John Wineland, and we're talking about creating deep intimacy in any moment. So one of the pieces that John and I talked when we were looking at doing this was really, you don't create deep intimacy by talking and just listening and being. So we didn't want to sit on a webinar for an hour and talk at you and have you just sit there and listen. We wanted to actually practice in the way that we teach. So the first thing we're going to do is actually all drop in, and John's going to lead us through a little practice.
All right, let's go. So obviously, if you're driving, don't close your eyes. But if you are not driving and you're sitting someplace safe, go ahead and close your eyes and plant your feet on the floor so you can feel your, almost like the soles of your feet spread a little bit. And just exert a tiny bit of pressure on the floor. So there's a real connection to the ground with your feet. And your eyes remain closed. And you're going to start to very smoothly breathe in. Your mouth is closed, so you're breathing in through your nose, into the base of your belly. So as deep and full and yet not strenuous inhale as you can manage. And then the exhale is going to be a real simple exhale through pursed lips. So the inhale is deep and full into your belly, and the exhale is almost like you're whistling. So you're inhaling deeply, and then you're exhaling almost as if you're whistling. And as you exhale, feel your entire inner body start to relax. So the inhale is full and deep, filling you with life, filling you with air, filling you with prana, whatever you want to call it, chi. And the exhale is allowing something inside of you to relax that needs to relax. Maybe it's the muscles around your heart. Maybe it's your jaw. Maybe it's your shoulders. Maybe there's a knot in your belly or your solar plexus. Let's just take the first 30 seconds here to smooth, deep inhales, and then every exhale relaxes you from the inside out, paying special attention to the muscles around your spine, that central column. Good. Good. The first piece of creating intimacy is to create intimacy with ourselves. So just for these next few moments, get really intimate with your breath. It's the relationship that you have to your breath. Inhaling in, exhaling out through pursed lips. And spend just a moment making an intimate connection to your own breath. And notice what that does for you. What's it like to first get intimate with yourself? And then expand that awareness beyond your breath to the inside of your body, especially down that central column, the area just a couple inches in front of the spine. Just get really intimate with that part of you. Does it feel relaxed? Does it feel open? Does it feel full? And just take a second to get intimate with yourself. And then, without losing this practice, you can open your eyes and you can feel all of the others watching this webinar. And so start to imagine that your breath is connected to them and you're feeling the rise and fall of their belly. You're feeling the rise and fall of their breath, and you're feeling the central column of them. Maybe if there's somebody next to you, you're feeling them too. So go from taking your awareness to yourself to now creating intimacy with the people on this webinar, even if you can't see them. See if you can place awareness on everybody watching this. And if you can't do that, place your awareness on me. Just notice what happens as you continue to breathe in this smooth and relaxing way, and you place your awareness on another person or people. And just take a few more moments to feel everybody here in this moment in time. Imagining that you can feel their breath in and out. You can feel their bellies rising and falling. Feeling us all linked in this cyber circle, right? This is the modern campfire we're all sitting around. And in these last few moments, imagine you can feel their hearts. You can feel what brought them to this webinar, what brought them to this moment, what's joyful for them, what's painful for them. And then just with a small bow, just a little nod, acknowledge your own practice. Acknowledge the practice of the others on this call. And bring your awareness back to yourself, back to your own breath. And I want to challenge you to, during the course of this call, stay connected to your own breath, because intimacy starts with a feeling body. And if we can't connect to our own feeling body via breath and relaxation, then our capacity to feel others is deeply impacted. And we can really only feel as deeply, we can feel others only as deeply as we feel ourselves. So during the course of this call, I want you to connect to your own breath. Then I want you to connect to maybe somebody else in your house, if there's somebody there. Or you can connect to Kendra or I or anybody else that's practicing or talking on this call. So if you notice yourself climbing up into your head, as we all do, multiple times a day, again, recommit to having a deep, intimate, juicy relationship with your own breath. And that is the start of deepening your intimacy in any moment, is connecting to your own breath. Kendra, to you.
The piece that John said about we can only feel into another as deeply as we're willing to feel into ourselves is it's a one piece. It's like this beautiful piece. And the other part that often comes up around that is that we wait. We wait to open our body until either someone else does it for us or until we deem them worthy. They've done something such that we're willing to bring this kind of openness that we just created in our bodies. And the only person who gets punished when you do that is yourself, because you're the one who's missing out actually on that, the feeling of the openness inside your own body. So do you want to, could I repeat that? I don't know. What did I just say? The importance of doing this kind of practice for ourselves is in part so that we can connect and feel another. And it's also because we have that feeling as we do it. We so often wait They either want the other person to create openness within us, do me, like open me, make me feel better.
Right.
Or we wait until we deem them worthy. They've given us enough attention. They've praised us in the way we want. They've done the things that warrant our openness. But it's a gift. It's a gift that you give yourself. It's a gift that you give another. It's a gift. It's just a gift. It's not really bound to anyone being worthy of it.
Yeah. There's a context here I'd like to set, Kendra, if you don't mind, which is there's three parts to really beautiful relationship practice. The first part is your own personal practice, which is what Kendra's talking about, and it's what we just did. That capacity to feel your own body, to open your own body, that's the personal practice. And there's all kinds of modalities for doing that: yoga, qigong, tantric, breath. I mean, you name it, there's a ton of them. And we talk about a lot of these in the work we do. And the second piece is cultivating that sense of intimacy with somebody, which is that feeling of sameness. Like when you're feeling somebody and you can tell that they're a soul, they're human, they have a heart, they have fears. You're the same. You're both divine beings in some way, if you believe in that. But there's sameness. And then the third part of practice, let's call it a pillar, right? 3 pillars of really deep relationship are your personal practice, your intimacy practice, and then your sexual practice, which is the capacity to feel energy moving between 2 partners. And normally in really good sexual polarity practice, one person is relinquishing their feminine and animating their masculine, and the other person is animating their feminine and relinquishing their masculine. So you have this pole, this arc of energy. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, can go back and forth. This is same-sex couples. It really doesn't matter. It just matters that one person in the moment's willing to relinquish their masculine and animate their feminine, and the other person is willing to relinquish their feminine and animate their masculine. And that's how you create the energy. So there's ways to cultivate each of those practices. You can cultivate a deeper personal practice. You can cultivate the capacity to feel oneness with your partner, and you can cultivate the capacity to feel sexual energy flow between you two. And you put all those together, and that's where you have magic.
Beautiful. I call that's actually that whole package. That's what I call intimacy. So I would say personal practice, resonance, and polarity, or the sexual practice. And if any one of those is missing, your intimacy will suffer, because an intimate relationship will ultimately be pulled down by the lowest common denominator in terms of personal practice. And if you don't cultivate that resonance practice, the sameness, there'll be a loss in the intimacy. And if you don't cultivate the polarity or the sexual practice, there'll be a loss also in the intimacy. Any one of those 3 pillars that John spoke about. So before we totally dive in, somebody, I can't remember your name, already modeled this beautifully by asking a question, but feel free to ask your questions all throughout. And if we have a chance, we'll get to as many as we can in the midst of John and I speaking and trying to illuminate some of this, and also actually diving into real-time practice. So give us your questions, and John, you want to take us into Blake and Nicolette?
Yeah, well, actually, I'd like to address that question first, because I think that will set up the practice with Blake and Nicolette perfectly.
What question?
The question that the woman gave you.
Oh, yes. So the question that came in was, how do you create intimacy when one or both partners are triggered in their deepest wound? And I want to say one thing before we.
Laura says,
great,
that was
good.
me.
I'm glad you're on the call. I want to say 2 things. One is we're really honored because Blake and Nicolette joined us for their date night. So we wanted to give them something good for taking their date night to be with us. And the other, and then I'll let John take it into this, but the other was that I was so glad when you asked that question, Laura, because not to say that we're always triggered, but my initial response was like, that's the place practice matters most. The whole reason that we practice is so that we have capacity when we're triggered. And, let's be honest, most of us, when we're triggered, feel like we're triggered in our deepest wound. Sometimes we really are, which is totally true. That happens. I'm not discounting that, but there is also the feeling like so often what's happening isn't actually as intense as that, but we feel like we're that triggered. So it's a really important question.
Great. So, I'll give my stab at it, and then Kendra, you can jump in as well. So when somebody is triggered, they're in a place of an unmet childhood need. That need could be the need to be seen, the need to have affection. But you can pretty much guarantee that almost all the times that you're triggered in relationship, unless you're really being threatened or really being, chased by a bear is the perfect example. Like, fear when you're being chased by a bear is legit, or a shark, right? Or if someone's trying to mug you, right? That's a legit fear. Almost all the other fears that we run through our body are about either a childhood trauma or an unmet childhood need. It could be the need to be safe. It could be the need to be loved in a certain way, to have physical affection. So if we follow the thread of the present moment complaint, what it gives us is an unmet childhood need. So when one person is triggered, then there's a couple ways to go about this. If the person who's triggered has the awareness to feel past the complaint and down into the underlying desire. So let's say, for example, a classic example is something like one person always initiates sex, and the other person feels like, that person feels like, they're not wanted, or if they try to initiate sex and they're rejected, for example, their trigger will be rejection. But if they have the awareness and the capacity, like we just cultivated, to slow things down, to connect to their body, to connect to their heart, to connect to their breath, they will over time learn to feel what the desire is. And the desire can then be expressed in a way that doesn't cause us to repel our partners, but actually causes our partners to want to come closer to us, want to take care of us, want to ravish us, want to give us their, love. And that capacity is, again, something that your nervous system can learn and you can be trained to do. So if you are the partner who's triggered and you cultivate enough body awareness and nervous system strength to be able to actually feel, you could call this emotional intelligence, but I think it's actually deeper than that. There's an awareness of your deepest heart and what's true in your deepest heart. And so let's take the example of somebody being rejected and trying to initiate sex. In the unmet childhood wound part, they will blame, attack, you never, or close completely. They'll, turn away and close down. They'll attack and say, you never want to have sex with me, or you don't want to. You don't want me anymore. You don't love me anymore. That's kind of a classic, talking from the childhood wound space. Or maybe they'll want to talk about it and be, this is how I feel. How do you feel? And there'll be kind of a discussion of what's happening, which is great. That's also a beautiful place to be too. But even deeper than that is a revealing of the deepest desire in your heart. So if that person who felt rejected, turns and faces their partner and just shows through their eyes, through their breath, through their body, the deep yearning to be held, to be ravished, to be gifted sexually or taken sexually, or whatever the moment might be called for, that actually evokes a deeper response out of the partner. And it's look, I'm making it sound easy, like this is just, hey, just feel your deepest heart and and show it. But it's actually one of the more difficult spiritual practices that anybody will ever do. And but it's those moments that create real deep connection. So there's one way. The other way to do this, if you're the partner who is not triggered and your partner is triggered, your capacity, again, to rise above the trigger and give love. So when any of us is triggered, it's usually in a fight. There's usually especially a feminine partner. For example, if a feminine partner is triggered, a masculine partner can add love to that trigger, and it will almost always, you can kiss her neck, or you can, I'm using her and him just because it's easier in this framework, but it's not, it could be a man or a woman in this moment. So you could kiss her neck, or you could, lift her off the ground, or, you can, when they're triggered, you can add lots of love and literally overpower their trigger with love. Few of us actually try to do that, and the results are quite surprising when we do. So there's that capacity too. The same thing can happen in the opposite. If a masculine partner is triggered, there's a certain energy that his feminine partner can give him. The classic example that I've learned, with my teacher is, if a man is angry, the feminine partner can give him energy, like brush energy down the front of his body and open his body to literally give him, to pull that, as the anger rises, pull it back down into his body. She can moan in his ear and do that. She could overpower him with her gifts, right? With her sexual energy, with her devotional energy, with her love. Now, there are a little different modalities, if you're a feminine partner, a masculine partner, but the basic thread is overpower them with love. And 9 times out of 10, that will really open a moment. And most people don't actually practice that. So that's how I would address that question. Those are 2 very strategic ways that you can rise above your partner's trigger or rise above your own trigger to create deeper intimacy, deeper connection in the moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Let's do the practice before I talk anymore, and then we'll see what comes from that in terms of questions, answers, and anything I have to add.
Great. Okay. Blake, so we're going to demo what we just talked about, just in case you guys are doubting, like, hey, all right, sounds great, asshole. How do I actually do that in my real life? So we're going to demo. So Blake and Nicolette have offered to practice for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys turn and face each other. And I think everybody can see this. We're in speaker mode, so we can only see ourselves, but I'm assuming everybody else can see. So if you can give me a yes on the chat, just to make sure that you can see. So first thing they're going to do, Blake, I'm going to be talking here, and you're just going to stay locked into Nicolette's left eye. So it's always nice to look in someone's left eye, because that's the receptive eye. So you're going to, just like we talked about, the first moment you're going to connect to your own breath, both of you, feeling your own breath. And on the exhale, allowing that center part of your body to relax. So just looking into each other's eyes, looking into each other's, feeling each other's breath, and starting to feel each other's bodies. So I'm going to switch to gallery view so people can see this, because they can't see it right now. Okay, good. So you should be able to see this now in gallery view. So breathing into that part of your body, and then starting to feel, just like we did earlier, starting to feel each other. So, feeling when you inhale, you feel her inhale. So, not quite sure how to fix that part. They can only see us. So we'll have to send a recording of this and you'll get that, but we're going to continue with the practice. So when you, good. So they've now started to sync their breath, and they've begun to match their breath and create what Kendra called resonance. And Blake is looking into Nicolette's left eye. He's feeling into her heart. He's connecting with her deeply and feeling what's happening inside her body, where she might be tense, where she might feel good, pleasure in her body, where it feels good to be looked at this way or felt this way. Okay. And just feel, Blake, for a moment, feel the part of her that really wants you to see her. Feel the part of her that really wants you to see her and know her. Know her deepest heart, know her deepest joy, know her deepest sadness. Good. That's great. And so, Nicolette, your job in this moment is to just allow the front of your body to soften and let him see the part of you that wants to be seen. Let him see the part of you that wants to be known deeply. Just another moment here. And I want you guys to continue this practice, Nicolette. You just keep revealing that part of you deeper and deeper, that the deepest part of your heart that wants to be known. And Blake, you just keep watching it. You can say through your eyes how beautiful it is. You can watch with awe and wonder as she shows you this. And now, Nicolette, I want you to think of a complaint or a wound or something that has been painful for you. And rather than use words to describe it, which normally takes us into our head, you're just going to start to offer it to Blake. You're going to reveal it through your breath and through your heart. And you're just going to allow him, softening the front of your body, you're going to allow him to see that desire that's underneath that wound, that complaint. So just keep revealing through your heart, and maybe there's a sound that comes with it. Maybe not. It's okay. But just keep showing him, this is my desire, this is my heart, this is my pain, this is my hurt. And the more she does, Blake, the deeper you dive into her eyes, the deeper you dive into her heart, the deeper you breathe her. Good. And just allow him to see that, to hold that part of you. Good. Beautiful. Keep revealing it. Keep revealing it. And the more she reveals, Blake, the more you just let her know, I'm here. I've got you. I've got you. I see you. You're so beautiful. This is so beautiful. Good. And now, Nicolette, feel Blake stay with her. And now, Nicolette, just see if there's any part of you that's holding back the pain, holding back the desire holding back the hurt. Good. Good. And just keep revealing, just keep peeling it open like it's a rose opening slowly. Let him feel that in your heart. Good. Let him feel what you want. Let him feel your desire to be seen and known and cherished, all of you, even this part. And Blake, you just stay with her. So beautiful. You're so beautiful. Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for sharing this with me. Good. Just a few more moments. And now, Nicolette, I want you to just add a little bit of sexual energy to this pain. Good. Just allow desire, a little bit of sexual desire to this pain. Good. Staying with her, Blake. Good. Breathing it in. So it's like you're giving him this pain as part of your sex, as part of your heart, as part of your body. Good. And the more she does, Blake, the more you just drink it in. Good. You just drink it in. Good. Good. Just take another moment here. We're not going to go any farther, although we know where this could go. Right? You have to come to the workshop if you want to see the advanced version of this, but just go stay here for a moment in this really sweet, turned on, inspired, honest, revealed connection. And just give him a tiny bit more of your heart, Nicolette, so he can feel again the desire that's underneath any of the pain that you've shared. And then come back to your own breath now. Take your awareness, Blake, back to your own breath, smoothly in and out. Nicolette, take your awareness back to your own breath, into your body, feeling the energy moving up and down the center channel. Probably a lot of it right now. And just for these last few moments, just enjoy each other. Like how beautiful you are. 7 billion, 6 billion people on the planet. There's not another one like this. Just enjoy that absolute uniqueness. There's nobody else like this on the planet. Okay. And then give each other a bow. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for trusting me with your heart. Good. Beautiful. So I think what would be good now, so that the people can see and hear a little bit, is to have Blake and Kendra, or Blake and Nicolette, share a little bit about how that felt. And can you do that? I know you might be a little mindless, but since we're right. So just so that, because I thought that they would be able to see you, but because I was speaking, they couldn't. So I'm going to let you, Blake, first just talk about what that experience was like for you, and take a minute to do that, and then we'll let Nicolette.
Would you first share, you can weave into wherever it goes, but start by saying what I loved about that.
Great.
And just speak up a little bit so that it goes into that, yeah.
You hear me well?
Pretty well. You probably need to speak up like it feels a little awkward between you and Nicolette, but everyone else it'll sound really normal.
What I loved about that was feeling the space and room for her to give me whatever she had, not knowing ahead of time what that would be, but just feeling the space in my chest, the space in my lungs, the space in my heart to hold it. And indeed, while I have some idea what's in her mind right now, because I don't live inside her body, I don't have a contextual experience for what's inside of her heart, her feeling, until we do something like this. And then I can experience it a little more firsthand. And that is powerful, breathtaking.
So can I ask you, Blake, you could actually feel at some moments, you could feel as if you could feel the inside of her body, you could feel the inside of her heart, her breath, that central part. Did you have that experience?
I did. That's a way to describe it, is as though I'm inside of her breath. I also felt like I could feel the texture of her emotional state, as I could touch it and know that it was either undulating or rippling really fast or quivering, or any other texture.
Awesome. Nicolette.
What I loved about that was from the moment that I didn't even notice that he had matched my breath until you said it. And then, so from that moment when we were breathing together, I felt, what I did feel in that moment was really safe and really held. And I actually didn't know the full texture of my emotional experience until I began to feel it in my body. And when you said open another layer, I was like, is there even there's another layer. Like, it was like, I loved how it just came pouring out, and I felt free. I felt free to do that. And then the desire, like I was in the depth of some deep pain. And when you said now connect to the desire, it was right there. Like just like the pain was right there, the desire was right there. And that was so exciting and unexpected. And I did, like right now, I feel liberated. I could just like run a marathon, or if my body feels really loose, and I feel really happy.
Not that kind of webinar, but yeah. Nice. Good. What is your date night? So we wanted to make sure to take care of you guys. Yeah. Thank you both. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for your practice,
and
for your generosity, really to everybody.
So there might be some questions around this, Kendra. Do you want to try to?
Yeah, let me say a couple things. I wanted to say what I loved about that. A couple things that I noticed, partly when I was witnessing Blake and Nicolette, and then partly in hearing them speak. And the first one that I really wanted to speak to, especially since some of you couldn't see, but I really loved the way that Blake was holding, it's like holding steady. And so at some point, I can't remember your exact words, John, but it was about feeling into Nicolette, but he didn't do this. Like it wasn't feel into him. It wasn't fall into Nicolette or feel right along with her everything that she's feeling. It was, that place of actually holding her feeling. And I could see it physically in Blake and could feel it in his awareness, that there was this holding that allowed Nicolette to go to that place or to be able to stay there. And then I loved, Nicolette, that you brought in this piece when you shared of that you weren't even quite sure what the texture was, maybe even right at the beginning or as it went on. And I thought that was so important for people to know when you're going to reveal. So often we think like, well, I should go figure it out first. And then I'll bring it fully formed, like I'll bring it when it's all ready and I know exactly how to talk about it and I can explain how it traces to my childhood wound, and that you could simply begin to bring it as a gift in the way that you did, Nicolette, without even necessarily knowing what all of it was. And clearly it worked, you know, whatever that means, but it wasn't somehow detracted from that she didn't know what that was before she brought it to Blake.
Mm.
And then I want to underscore what you said at the end, Nicolette, about when John asked you to bring in a little bit of desire or sexual energy, and it was right there. And it occurs to me, maybe it's all of our feelings. You know, I don't know, but certainly most of our feelings are pain and desire. They basically live in the same place. And we don't really get to say like, well, I want more passion, but I don't really want to feel my pain. Like, okay, like got that, God, I'm ready for the passion, but like, we don't really need to go there. That they live in the same place. And when you unlock one, you will unlock the other.
Yeah. And, you know, the beautiful thing about watching that practice is feeling safe, having her feel safe and held. So Blake was in the masculine role in this, and they could have reversed it. Like it could have totally gone the opposite way, where Nicolette could have been in the masculine holding structure, feeling into Blake, and Blake could have revealed a deep hurt or revealed something. So this can go back and forth for sure.
It's definitely not gendered.
No, it's not gender specific at all. But Blake was in the masculine role in this. And so he was providing the structure for Nicolette's heart, right? He was providing the space with his breath, with his eye gazing, with his posture, with his solidness. And that allowed Nicolette to reveal more and more of her heart, so that I could tell when there was that Blake was able to, if Blake wouldn't have been as connected and stayed as connected to her as he did, I wouldn't have suggested that she find a deeper layer, but it was there. And so it's just really important to know that in those moments, you know, part of this idea of creating intimacy in any moment is to know that, and I think we taught a workshop with this theme, like the masculine structure is one part of the intimate moment, and the feminine energy or the feminine heart or the feminine light is the other part of that moment. And when both of those things are revealed to the utmost, you can have the kind of, you know, intimacy that we just witnessed. And, you know, it can happen really much more often than it does. It's just so much more available than we think.
So there are a couple of questions. There's comments, and they also came in. So let me just check here.
So I think they're on the chat.
There's a lot on the chat. There's also 2 questions on the Q&A. So one is, how often should this be practiced? There's a couple of someone was asking about the significance of the left eye. You want to speak to that, John? It's the receptive eye. That's it. And it just keeps us from shifting our eyes back and forth. But if you feel better looking into a right eye, or your partner feels better getting their right eye looked into, it's no hard and fast rule. The question about how often this should be practiced it's a little bit of a tricky one. I don't know your relationship, so you know, you might need to be more specific than that. And there's lots of different ways. I mean, I would say one should practice very often when one is in relationship. What that practice is that's a moving target, because both people are always changing and evolving, and what each person actually needs, both in their personal practice and in the relational practice, like that's going to change. So yeah, without knowing more, I can't really answer the question, how often should this be practiced? Oh, yeah. There's a question here about a mother and teenage boys and kid. This gets a little complicated, but kids are very different in resistance to this stuff. So does it not translate? I coach a lot of women,
And I end up working with a lot of women on their relationship to their children, because there is a polarity, although it's not sexual polarity, there's a polarity. And when you're dealing, it's basically, the question is about how do you soothe somebody who's angry and doesn't want to be soothed. And she's talking about a teenage boy. And anybody who is in emotional upset is in there, who's connected, identified with their feeling, like the depth of their feeling and the depth of their upset is in their feminine. So it actually requires to be with somebody, whether, there's nothing more fully expressive, this, Kendra, than, young children. And it actually requires to cultivate a healthy masculine to hold space for and work with the feminine energy of children. So I know most people don't talk about that, but it's a little more advanced practice. But the quick answer, Kristen, is to cultivate the part of you that can be still and stay still and loving. So the part of you that can bring conscious love, that's your highest masculine, conscious love. Cultivating that part of you and bringing that to the situation. It might look like lavishing them with love. It might look like blessing them. It might look like grounding them. It might look like any number of things, but it's going to come from the place of conscious love. And I'm not a child psychologist, so I'm running this through a very specific lens of intimacy practice, but I see this work a lot in relationships between parents and children.
I do want to say something about it. I want to say two things, and it can be hard, first of all, as the mother, sometimes to choose, like, to realize, like, oh, fuck, like, I got to play the masculine here. So I just want to speak to that. And what that really takes is it takes the willingness to get the other parts of you fed in other places. So I notice, for instance, my children are younger than that, but when I get grouchy about how entitled they are, I realize, like, oh, I'm needing someone, like, I'm wanting them to tell me that they appreciate me, and that's not their role. Therefore, I need to go get my appreciation. Like, I need to go to my partner. I need to go to my kids' dads. I need to go to my friends. Like, I need someone to say, like, you're doing an amazing job. You do so much work. You're so good. Let me take care of you. Like, I need someone else to do that because it's not my kid's role. But so there's this choice that John is talking about, like the conscious love, like actually being willing to step into the masculine and go, like, that is my role with my children. Because teenagers are so much like toddlers, and they're really in this, like they truly are, whether they're boys or girls, they're in their feminine. There's so much energy. There's so much all of it. And the other piece, and I actually just worked with another mom around this, and it's with her stepdaughter. And it's specifically what you're speaking to, Kristen, here, which is, if they're not into this work, what do I do? So she invited her stepdaughter into, like, an authentic conversation. Stepdaughter initially said yes, then said no, then just ignored her. And my invitation to her, well, first, my question, it's just a genuine question, is, are you willing? What she said she wanted to do was get her stepdaughter's world. And I said, are you willing to do that, even if she doesn't want to reciprocate in any way? So underneath what you're saying, my guess is you want to be intimate with them in some way. So if they're not into what you're into, do you want to do it anyway? And that's there. So there's this specific with children, but the way that I want to bridge it is that there's this way. I mean, of course, we want our partners to meet us in certain ways. That's different than we need our children. Like, we don't need our children to meet us in the same way, or we shouldn't do that. But in some way, that question is actually the same, which is like, do I want to meet my partner where they're at? When I'm triggered, or I think they're not giving me what they should be giving me, So this isn't so much specifically in response to that question, but it's the bridge between what we've been talking about with children and what actually happens in our intimate relationships. Is like, what's coming at me is something I wish they would be different. I wish there was a way to invite them into it. Like, I wish they would do these practices with me. I mean, how many women out there are saying, where's my conscious man? You know, so how do you actually bring these pieces in the way that incorporates the person who's actually in front of you?
There's another piece I think that's really important here around, you know, we're talking about practice, right? We talked about personal practice. Well, a big piece of personal practice, at least the way that I have learned, and I like to teach it, is that we all have masculine and feminine parts. And oftentimes in, you know, polarity practice, we'll just work on, I want to enhance my feminine. I want to enhance my masculine. Well, actually, we really grow the most by enhancing all of us, meaning I have to do work on my feminine and the parts of my feminine that are not expressed. I have to do parts of, have to work on my own masculine and my capacity to express my masculine or rest as consciousness or all of the masculine practices. And so in advanced practice and the deeper we go into this, it's really about cultivating our wholeness, our full masculine, our full feminine. And then in any moment, for example, I mean, the example that I use is, you know, after I'm done, you know, teaching a workshop, I'm completely mindless. And so my partner, Kendra, you've had to do this for me sometimes too. You know, I'm mindless. And so somebody's got to tell me what to do. Somebody's got to take the lead, go there, eat here, take this, because I'll just float off into the middle of the street, right? So that's somebody having the capacity to step into their own masculine, even if they're a woman or even if they prefer to be in a feminine role. They see like, wow, John's going to get hit by a car or a bus if he just keeps wandering around. So let me help direct him. And this happens a lot in relationships. It's not talked about, but this idea of noticing when our partner, so what I see a lot of is, because a lot of feminine partners don't feel met, and there's a resentment, an unmet, you know, undiscussed and unprocessed resentment, their desire to then play the masculine for their partner's feminine is highly compromised. If that makes sense. And so it happens a lot where a woman in a relationship won't feel met. And so her partner's feminine, when he's in it, she'll just be angry that he's not seeing her, meeting her, holding her, being a masculine partner, instead of saying, oh, this guy's in his feminine, he's truly upset. How can I have my highest cultivated masculine hold space for that? Until he feels held enough for it to switch again. So our capacity to switch back and forth in modern relationship is going to be determined by our capacity to practice all of us, the whole spectrum of masculine to feminine. And that's what I love about, you know, about this work, is that there's a full range.
It's beautiful. And it's really important that the piece of what John's talking about is really practicing all the way over into the feminine and practicing all the way over into the masculine and distinguishing those practices. And not, there's a lot of misinterpretation, which is like, oh, it's the wholeness. That means I should do all of it all at the same time. I should be my full feminine and my full, because I'm a whole human being, right? Like, and where that capacity comes from is our willingness to really relinquish one and expand way over into the other. And I think what you spoke to so beautifully is not only, for instance, in the example you gave, is women being frustrated and so not wanting to gift their masculine to their male partners in that way. And then often what sadly actually happens is that what they do is they offer their unhealthy masculine instead.
Right, they're toxic.
Why didn't she see the stop sign? They tell him what to do, but they don't actually guide him the way that the healthy masculine would guide. They say like, oh, I don't want to be in my masculine. You should be telling me what to do, which is basically telling him what to do. but in an unhealthy way rather than guiding him, because that's what he actually needs in that moment. So again, it comes back to these unmet childhood wounds, and also chronic, you know, some of it's not always exactly childhood wounds, but what you're speaking to, John, is like chronic undernourishment in certain areas.
Yeah.
There was one piece I wanted to speak to here where somebody asked about the effectiveness of what you brought to Blake and Nicolette, because you were holding the container for them.
Mm-hmm.
And doing this without someone else holding the container. And I think there's two pieces to that. And one is pretty much any practice when you're just learning it, like if it's new to you, in all likelihood, you probably do need to be held, or you do need some guidance, or you do need to, you'll stumble through practicing it for a while without that. And then you can take it. So, you know, on your own and run with it. For instance, Nicolette has been practicing with us for the better part of a year. So, and then, you know, bringing her partner into that. And Blake has practiced with us in the past as well. So they have those capacities. They also practice on their own. And there's something beautiful about being held inside of that. And yes, it absolutely is challenging to simply bring this into your personal life without somebody else, holding it sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the value of coming and, you know, having somebody hold the space for you.
Yeah. It would be like me giving you a guitar and saying, yeah, go write a song. Like it's you have to learn the basic chords and art forms and ways of playing guitar, maybe with a teacher, maybe self-taught, but you just have to learn first, and then you can start to make art. So yeah, this is why we have jobs, right? Because we're teaching people how to do this and then take home a little bits at a time, practice a little bit at a time. And I think this is why, I mean, the reason we did this webinar was just to, you know, let people sort of get a sense of the work and invite them to experience more if they wanted to do the salon or a workshop. And the salon is a 6-month guided journey into this work. And it takes quite a while to undo the habits that have been brewing for, you know, 20, 30, 40 years, and to allow us to start to bring different parts of ourselves, wider parts of ourselves, deeper parts of ourselves, and train our nervous system. So that's why when you and I came up with this, Kendra, we were like, it's got to be 6 months minimum that people are working on this. So that's what we're, you know, that's what Kendra and I are offering again. The last one was fantastic. Nicolette was part of it. Stephanie was part of it. And so we wanted to offer this again in another level. And part of what we did tonight is a good snippet. I mean, it's 1 hour, but it's a snippet of the kind of work that we do over a 6 month period.
Yeah, the beauty of it, I love what you said, John, which is it has to be 6 months minimum. And that's a beautiful container. People actually went incredibly deep in 6 months. And truly, it is the first module of a 2-year training program, because what we're also doing inside of that is doing the deep personal work in service also of people being able to bring this work out into their own, if you already have a coaching or a facilitation practice, or you know that that's your path. So it's, the first step always is personal practice, and then the training inside of that.
Absolutely. So anything else you want to say about before we wrap up, anything else you want to say about what we covered tonight or about the salon?
I got a little caught off guard, frankly, by the time I was just getting going. So and I think the only thing I would say is that both of us are quite easy to find. So, you know, please reach out in some form or another if you have questions or follow-up from this webinar. And if you are intrigued in any way, we can certainly point you in the right direction, whether that's something more like a conversation or a workshop, or you're really ready for a 6-month deep dive.
Yeah. So let me just really bookmark that, because we have workshops, a couple workshops this year, one in Berkeley, one in Los Angeles, that you can come to and practice the things that you saw Blake and Nicolette practice. But the salon is really kind of a special egg. So it requires an application, it requires an interview. It's not for everybody because it is a very deep dive. So just wanted to throw that caveat. And we really want, the right group of people who are committed to the kind of practice that we want to bring. And so it's a small group, it's a very intimate group, and it's a very deep dive. But if you're inspired, then we're more than welcome to tell you about it and have a conversation about it, see if it's the right fit. Cool.
Great.
So the one thing I want everybody to take home tonight is this practice, this personal practice of connecting and creating a real intimate moment-to-moment relationship with their breath and the center of their body. If we just spent 10 more minutes a day doing that, 15 minutes a day doing that, and just, a few times a day, spend a minute or two reconnecting to our breath in a very intimate, deep way, and relaxing the center of our body, our whole lives would change. So if that's all you get out of this webinar, if that's all you get out of this last hour is that practice, then please take it, enjoy it, run that thing into the ground, because that's one of those things you can never do too much of. Right?
Yeah, breathing. We can never do too much breathing. But
relaxing.
Yeah, I really agree with John that it will change your life. I would put it out there actually as a challenge to anyone listening to this, is to actually take on even 5 minutes. Like if for some reason you think you're so busy you can't take 10, but you said every single day I will take 5 minutes and actually connect to my breath in an intimate, gentle, and curious way. Like truly discover what your breath is. It will actually change your life. Yeah.
And the sex will be pretty amazing once you develop that. It has, if you need incentive, it has an immediate impact on your capacity to have sex. All right, thank you everybody, and thank you Stephanie, thank you Blake, thank you Nicolette, Kendra. It's always a pleasure to talk about this stuff with you, and thank you everybody who listened. We will have a recording available for all those who weren't here, and it will go up on all the usual channels. Yeah.
Ciao.
All right. See you later.